Comparison is the thief of joy, unless. Welcome back to the Josh Button podcast, where we talk outliers from society. That is sick society. And yes, I think we can all agree the stats are alarming. The epidemic of poor health and of illnesses and sicknesses that are, well, just completely out of line. It's absolutely horrific. And we need to embrace the things that have proven to be beneficial and positive and produce, well, health. I started this podcast with a focus on truth because I do 100% believe truth produces health. And where does that start? Where should that begin? I'm constantly brought back to something mainly because of jiu-jitsu and because of the current environment we all know to be social media, where, to be quite honest, comparison is the thief of joy. And I put a big unless in because I do believe comparison is not only necessary, but it can be a great and valuable tool if we're comparing ourselves to ourselves. If we're comparing ourselves to us yesterday or us a year ago. And why not create a blueprint for success? And why not have goals that take us far beyond the conditions that we have right now, the environment that we've created for ourselves, and the lifestyles that we have chosen to, well, accept. And why should we accept anything less than, well, there is no perfect, but anything less than as good as we can, as good as we should, as good as positive as possible. So being honest with ourselves and comparing ourselves to ourselves takes, well, introspection. It takes analyzing and interpreting, and it takes complete and total honesty with ourselves, first and foremost. It's very easy to compare ourselves to others who are not doing well and to say, well, at least I'm not here. At least I'm not there. At least I don't have this affliction. At least I don't have that affliction. At least I don't have these habits. It's such a scapegoat in society. It's so easy to compare ourselves to those around us or those that we come across or we interact with that are clearly doing poorly in some area. And it's easy to judge others. It's easier to judge others than it is to rationally and honestly judge ourselves. However, I do believe that if we are capable of this and we choose this path, this narrow path, if you will, well, it will enlighten us to what it takes to improve, what it takes to make ourselves better people. And some of the struggles that we will encounter while deciding to do so might, well, not make us more empathetic, but make us more understanding that others are having challenges and are going through challenges. Nobody has an easy road in this life. One of the things I shared with friends of mine a few years ago on the West Coast was that no matter how good they thought they had it above the average, that they were sure they were destined to face consequences of inaction. And their lives, as rosy as they would like to paint the picture for others, were most definitely going to be riddled with challenges. And we all have our own challenges, very specific to our lives. We are, well, we're individuals in that way. We cannot possibly escape the reality that life is suffering. And life is suffering for all of us. It's not just suffering for those that are poor. It's not just suffering for those that are sick. It's not just suffering for those that don't know better. The old saying, ignorance is bliss, is so true in so many regards because, well, if you don't know any better, what's going to make you demand better? And if you're not demanding better, well, just surviving becomes a task of its own. When you're aware that you can thrive and you are just surviving, that's a challenge in itself. What steps can you take to improving your conditions and making it, well, more readily available, this thriving, this thing that we would like to project onto the world that we are doing oftentimes when we're not. That's my problem with social media across the board, is that we've been encouraged and almost incentivized to lie or to share things that aren't necessarily the truth, just to share, well, views through peepholes. And if you're looking at just this little segment of my life, look how well I got it going. Look how together I've gotten it. I became absolutely, well, just run down and completely over the process of adding modeling photos and adding commercial videos and adding all of these things that were viewed through a lens to be glamorous or to be self boasting and prideful and arrogant. And there's all these different terms that you can apply to it, if especially if that's the only part of my life that you're viewing. And if you're not viewing the challenges that I'm going through and the conversations that I'm having in my head and the downfalls and the roadblocks and the challenges that are just there, like your everyday life, well, it's easy to judge that person, and it's easy to be jealous of that person, and it's easy to compare yourself to that person. That was one of the things that became very tiresome for me, was not being complimented, because, geez, everybody likes being complimented, but having people tell you that these things that you know that weren't really that true. How did you keep your weight off? Were you really healthy? Were you a specimen of health when, that's what you presented in the photos that you were putting on Instagram and Facebook and across the internet? And when you're representing huge brands and you are their advertising face and the campaign face, is that really you? And the image that's put forth, is that something you really identify with? Is that based in truth, or is it fiction? And a lot of the times for myself, it was complete fiction, because I wasn't taking the best care of myself. I wasn't in the best shape I could be. I wasn't safeguarding my own life, my own vulnerability, my ideals and the things that I was struggling with. In reality, I was presenting an image of what people wanted to see, of what I was incentivized to present, what got more likes, what got more comments. And I look back and I think, how many times could I have just stopped and analyzed and interpreted my life and been separate from the image that I was putting on social media, or that was expected of me to put on social media? Because that was another huge problem I had with the way the world went in my modeling career. It went from, well, we have this private life and we have a public life. And the public life, yes, we're going to events, we're doing runway shows, we're doing commercials, we're doing networking at affiliated parties and events and etc. But we had a private life. And social media comes along and we are presenting our private lives to a certain degree and this public image to a certain degree, until social media started to take over. Presenting yourself as the product so that the brands and clients that could align with who you were presenting yourself to be could use you for advertisements and then manipulate you into, well, pushing their brands on your own dime, on your own time, on your own private life platform. So that kind of did away with actual private life. It was more of a portfolio. In modeling, you would go and you'd create these portfolios. You'd take photos with photographers and you would do magazine shoots that didn't really pay anything for the images, so that you could put these images into your portfolio, share your portfolio with prospective clients, and then book jobs based upon that. And when social media gained the traction that it had gained, we were basically instructed to present something that was commercial, acceptable, that brands would want to align with. And then we were expected to share what we were doing with these brands online, well, it was incentivized and it was expected because the brands would get the views, you would get the views, and it would be like your portfolio expanding on the internet, which, it is what it is. It's part of the world now. And that will not change, most likely. But it made it a lot easier to lie to ourselves. It made it a lot easier to only present that keyhole view of reality. And if you're doing that all the time, and that's how you're surviving, and that's how you're, sustaining, you're paying your bills and putting food on the table, then it does become hard to be honest with yourself about how your actual quality of life is, what your actual challenges are, how you can improve yourself. You're focusing on this false image that you're putting out there. You're worried about manipulating that more than you are rewarding yourself with actual investment in yourself. An actual investment in myself would be to monitor the things that I'm eating, eat well, eat enough to sustain high energy levels and growth and performance. But this isn't something that was very easy, especially in a business like that. Deciding and planning methods and habits for self-improvement and self-mastery, and to even educate yourselves in many different ways that aren't part of that business, it's not easy. We all have this one challenge, that there is only so much time in the day. There is only so much time in the day. And I talked a podcast or two ago about, how I'm investing my time. And it became so important to me when I realized how much time had passed me by and how much I had, outsourced the things that were very important to me that I thoroughly enjoyed, like time with my dog. I mean, that one in itself, the last dog I had, Rhea. Oh man, I would, especially towards the end of her life, I would have done anything to have some of the youthful energy she had back, and the times that we could go to the park and me walking her and exercising her and keeping that routine and that schedule that she was dependent upon myself, as opposed to outsourcing it. And I thought about that in regards to people that have children and how they must feel when these kids are teenagers and they've worked so much of these, they've worked so much of these child's lives. And the regret, it's absolute regret if you get to that time where you have to reflect and go, I could have better have served myself and my own happiness by spending more time with my child, or demanding that I have more time for myself and, ask more of myself to benefit myself by. So deciding and planning and eliminating habits that do not serve us, do not help, us grow. It's a challenge for all of us. It's absolutely a challenge. And when we're comparing ourselves to others, and we're literally setting ourselves or giving ourselves a guideline that's based upon fiction in itself, and we're trying to keep on that same plateau as other people that, we know really aren't who they project themselves to be, and they really are missing out on life and things that really should be, I think, held in high esteem. The little things should be held in high esteem. We only live once. This precious thing called life slips away from us so rapidly if we are chasing, unreasonable expectations and goals that aren't really our goals for a happy life. They're goals that society says we should have because everybody on Instagram has these goals. What's the importance, and why do I care about how many followers I have or what they have to comment about what I'm doing in my life day to day? Is that really the way that we are going to gauge failure and success? I had a conversation with somebody I worked with a few years ago, and they are from an environment where they are surrounded by successful people. And I do mean success in the worldly view of success, because they had an abundance of money, abundance of properties, an abundance of fans, an abundance of all of the things that the world says should be our priority and our goal. But there were some very, very unhappy people and unhealthy, extremely unhealthy people in this circle. So I would present that question: what is success to you? Is it following in the footsteps of all of these individuals around you who supposedly have all the success that we should ever want? Or do you have an alternate view of what success is? Is it possible success is having freedom to decide how you spend your days, where you spend your days, and whether or not you decide to present anything at all online or on social media or in a public eye, so to speak? How much effort should you be putting forth to what your perception of is in the public, as opposed to enjoying the short amount of time you have here? One thing I really do appreciate about the jiu-jitsu community is that no matter what your individual reasoning is, you are putting yourself on those mats in a situation where you need to, well, ask more of yourself consistently. And if you're putting yourself into conditions in which you must grow to not completely fail, you must grow to reduce failure, you must grow to ever come to the point where you can analyze, interpret, and plan for, well, survival. Because that is survival. It is survival. You're underneath people. I was just on Instagram the other day posting this. Most of the roles, most of the sparring sessions that I've had thus far, 5 years or so, where I learned the absolute most, I was probably put in the toughest conditions possible. I was getting beat, if that's how you want to look at it. And you can either accept that that is a beating and you are putting yourself on the mats every day for a beating, or you can accept it as something else. This is an opportunity to grow. This is an opportunity to become more resilient, to be less stressed in a stressful situation, to learn how to breathe and relax and be patient, even in the face of discomfort. That to me is one of the most fundamental principles that I've taken away from this, is that you are going to be in uncomfortable situations. It's best that you learn how to deal with that in the best way and shape and manner possible, rather than try to avoid it. In life, we will not be able to avoid discomfort and uncomfortable situations. We just won't. It's a natural thing for all of us. So stop even feeling the need to compare yourselves to others, because you don't see most of the challenges and most of the discomfort that people are going through. It's just not how it's not how we are building society and the norms in this day and age. And we should be. We really should be allowing ourselves to be vulnerable enough, but allowing the people around us, the affiliations, to expose themselves, to share the vulnerable moments, to share the discomfort, to share the problems, the roadblocks, where they're stumbling. And it's not to me, it's not something I've set importance on vocalizing. It's just understanding that everybody has them. So if I'm going to compare myself to anybody else, I want to compare myself to the people that have achieved, in my view, success. The people that have what I want. The people that aren't bragging or boasting or presenting something that I think is fake. It's that they've already proven they can do something that I wish to attain. A black belt is a great, great analogy for this, because you do not get that for free. You do not get that based upon false identity. You can identify as a black belt all you want, but I guarantee you, when you get onto the mats, you will be proven and you will be exposed if you're not. There's a great online, I wouldn't even call it subculture. There's just people that have presented themselves as black belts, or has presented themselves as masters of martial arts, and then other people that set out to illustrate that these people are lying and are being fraudulent. And it never works out good for the person that's lying. It never does. If you're lying to yourself, you might as well be lying to the world and waiting for somebody to come and catch up with you to prove to you that you are lying. I don't know about you, but I'd much rather be honest about where I'm at and be encouraged to grow, be shown examples and illustrations of how to get to a better place, than to be putting on a false facade and be broken for it and be shown to be fraud and be exposed. Exposure is great medicine for a lot of things, but it's much better if you are exposing yourself to yourself. So if I'm completely honest with myself and I'm a 22-year-old Josh Button who's out in bars and drinking and wasting copious amounts of time and brain cells for that matter in activities that are, well, they're just really low bar activities. It's just entertainment. It's just a comfort. It's a distancing myself from reality. And am I presenting some alter ego, or am I presenting something, a facade of some sort that isn't based in reality? Me talking to the 22-year-old me, wow, boy, you really didn't have much figured out when you thought you did. And you had to go through decades, 2 decades of, well, what doesn't work? What did not work? And that's okay. That's okay. You did find ways to grow along the way, and you've found ways to expand your consciousness and to analyze and interpret your own life. And when it came time to dismiss some of these shallow activities, when it came time to eliminate some bad habits and some things that you knew were holding you down, well, by golly, you did it. And you're a much happier, healthier, far more free individual for doing so. But you only took those steps from comparing yourself, to you yesterday. It is me versus me. I would rather enlist the assistance of individuals who have leadership in different areas, who have proven to overcome themselves, who have proven to be a pillar in their community, most likely because they endured challenge after challenge after challenge, and are now an example for what can be done, what is possible. I would much rather deal with those individuals than outsource for quick fixes, outsource to shallow comments based upon a subpar reality or a fake reality that I'm presenting to the world. You know, many and often we are, I think, somewhat encouraged to outsource to, I mean, look at TV. The advertisements for the pharmaceuticals are absolutely heinous. And I've watched a few football games here recently, the playoff football games and whatever, and that's really the only thing I'll turn on TV. I'll sit down and watch football games with my dad. But you see these advertisements and how they're presented and the brainwashing that goes into and the detail that they put into it to brainwash people. It's absolutely sickening. And I believe it should be illegal, but I believe it's entrapment of individuals that are just willing to outsource, that are just willing to, instead of looking deep inside them or looking through a real truthful, honest lens at their lives, who would like to clean some things up or fix some things the easy way, the shortcut. I've talked about this a lot. There is no shortcut. There is no easy way. If you're not embracing discomfort and you're not willing to look at yourself and improve your conditions consistently, life is going to throw these things at you that are much more difficult. Absolutely much more difficult. Weight loss. Weight loss. You've seen it a million different ways from Sunday. If you're not willing to have discipline and control over what you're consuming, doesn't matter what fad diet you try, doesn't matter what somebody tells you worked for them, you can follow along in the footsteps of individuals that are probably presenting a bunch of bullshit, or you can analyze and interpret yourself. get some good solid information, and then stick to the principles of which you've learned. Self-control, moderation. There's a million different ways we can analyze and interpret our own lives every day. There's a plethora of opportunities for us if we look at it that way. And for myself, even this month, the 30 Days of Carnage, it's a Project A I wanted to do for myself because of my birthday this month, turning 45 again. I just really wanted to know, what is my body capable of? What can I recover from? Have I been asking enough of myself? And I can tell you right now, as exhausted as I was previously and leading up to this point, I was not asking enough. I learned that about myself this month. You know what? You had more in the tank than you were aware of. And I think that's the case for most of us across the board. You had more in the tank. Was it comfortable? No. Were you winning? No. But you survived it. You grew from it. You had more than you wanted to acknowledge you had. You had more capability. Fortitude, strength, conditioning, all of these things. We must ask more of ourselves. We must demand more of ourselves. If we want to adapt to be able to do more, we must, incur more. We must do more. Demand adaptation. I have built training principles around it, and I believe in it. And it's worked for me time and time again. Place new demands upon my body, new demands upon my mind, new demands upon my activity every day, and force myself to endure until I adapt and thrive in those conditions. And then I make tougher, more stringent conditions. Balance training is just like that. I couldn't stand on a slack line the first time I tried it, that's for sure. It was the first time absolutely foreign and crazy, and I thought, how does this work? How could somebody even do this? But the balance boards and the endo boards, if you're familiar, the things that I could do on them a year after I started with them was night and day from what I could do when I first started. It's just the way you work. Your body adapts. Balance is one of the best things for, I think, especially men growing up. You probably think some kind of way about your physical abilities. But if you put yourself in an unstable circumstance, I guess, on a balance board, an endo board, a Bosu ball, even trampolines to a certain extent, but slack lines, tight ropes, walk a curb. There's all kinds of places you can challenge yourself. Shoot, just stand on one foot, hold the other foot, do yoga. Bikram yoga was big for me. The first class I went into, I was sweating profusely and thought it was all about the heat. The poses that people were doing that I couldn't do, I didn't really give too much thought to. I didn't think I was going to be doing it. 6 months later, I was doing every pose and I was sweating just as profusely, and I was getting the same gains, but it was easier. And you can go put yourself in a yoga class until that doesn't do it for you anymore, and then put yourself in an unstable environment and do some of the same things. We all have a million different ways we can improve our lives. If we are honest with ourselves, we have patience with ourselves to adapt when we place those new demands upon ourselves. And this month, I am re-energized with the possibilities for myself, and I'm grateful, I'm thankful, I'm stoked, and I'm ready to ask more of myself. I do not want to stop that. Part of the mobility, part of the strength, part of the conditioning of all the activities I engage in are for later years in life, so that, I won't be facing some of the same ailments that most people a little bit older are. But I got to be honest with myself about what my capabilities are right now, every day, and improve them. Adapt to new demands. If you are on YouTube, please like and subscribe. I'm putting out a YouTube trailer this week, and I'm going to have some other long-form content that's going on there. I'm going to try and get some shorts in from the podcast and from the long-form content as well. If you're on Spotify and Apple, thanks for listening. This was episode 35. Comparison is the thief of joy, unless. I'm Josh Button. Thanks for joining me. I will talk to you all soon. Have a great day.